What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Made You a Mixtape podcast. I'm your host, Jason. If you're listening to us on any of the audio streaming services or if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for joining in. On today's soundtrack of life that is the show, we have, in my opinion, probably one of the best cellists in the nation of Canada today, Erika Nielsen. Erika, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really great, Jason. How are you? I'm
doing really good. When it comes to people, kind of picking up that first instrument, you hear I learned piano. I learned, guitar. I learned drums. How did you get to the point where it's like you wanted to jump behind the cello?
Well, I was really fortunate in that I came from a musical environment, a musical household, and I started playing piano with my mom and singing at home and those things. And when my parents would take us to the local symphony, Kingston Symphony, and when I heard that cello section, I just thought, yes, I must have that. And so I started asking for lessons when I was about 7. And of course, my family thought this must be a phase that kids go through. But I persisted. And when I was 9 years old, I got my first cello and started taking lessons.
When you were starting to learn, what were some of the songs or some of the artists that kind of inspired you along the way to continue with your journey behind the cello?
Well, when I was really little, my biggest inspiration came from the other older cellists that were in my teacher's studio, and you'd hear them play at recitals and things like that. And when you'd hear them before, you'd think okay, I want to play that piece someday, or you could kind of picture yourself in their shoes. So it was those kind of role models when I was youngest, and then a lot of the classic works along the way, some of which are going to be on my mixtape, so I don't want to give them all away.
Now, when people think cellist and all that, their initial thought may be, okay, so someone who has basically tried to get into a city's symphony orchestra, but you've had a phenomenal and very diverse journey as far as the cellist goes. I mean, everything from playing classical music or improvisational to literally performing with Kanye West. Just kind of walk us along your professional cello journey.
Well, I, of course, started off the classical stream, but I grew up with every genre of music in the household imaginable. Like my mom's a sax player, and so there's a lot of jazz music. My parents love classic rock, so there's a lot of Neil Young, Pink Floyd going on there, and of course classical music. And I could see how the cello fit in classical music. And I played in, the junior string orchestra and then our local youth orchestra. And when I was in, I guess 8th grade or so, I'm starting to listen to pop bands. Then I'd hear beautiful string lines on. And it occurred to me like Oasis. And actually that was kind of one of the first bands I listened to, and I heard the cello line on there, and I thought, okay, well, that cellist must be employed, and maybe I don't just have to play it in an orchestra. Maybe I can play the cello in other contexts, and that got me so excited, and it made me love my instrument even more because I started to realize how versatile it really was. And of course, this was in the 90s. So there was no YouTube videos of, improvising cellists using pedals and cool stuff like that. All I knew was the cello as it related to my orchestra and my teacher and my classical community. And so so listening to the bands that I listened to, and I would jam with friends in high school that played guitar, and we'd get together at the local coffee house or in Buddy's basement, and we'd jam it out, and maybe the guitar players were all sort of influenced by Dave Matthews and and these other jam bands, and it was really fun, and I just play cello with them, and I could be part of it. And so that's kind of how it got started. And then when I was in university, I would play cello for all of the music theater productions. And oh man, I love musical theater, and I just thought that was great too. And I grew up going to like see Gilbert and Sullivan and Broadway productions and local high school theater productions. And then when I moved to Toronto for grad school, I started doing lots of local gigs and things. And one thing always leads to other work. And so that kind of launched my career as a multi-genre cellist in both classical and non-classical settings.
And one of the cool things that you also are a part of, and you're wearing the shirt of it today, is classic albums live. Like, how cool is that for you mentioned that your dad would listen to Pink Floyd and albums like that. So, and you're actually getting a chance to perform some of these albums in their entirety, well, when concerts were happening, on an actual stage. Do you find it difficult to make the jump from classical to a rock opera or rock like full rock album?
No, I don't find it difficult to make the change at all. Like I think if I wasn't a cellist, I would be a musician in it, whatever instrument that would be. I don't know. I've got some ideas, I guess, but playing a classic rock album, like a Beatles album or a Floyd album or something like that. I don't know. I just, it feels like it's all music to me. Shout out to Classic Albums Live. I've even got their t-shirt today. Wonderful colleagues there. And I sure miss those shows. Really miss our concerts.
I was about to ask that, and over the past year, obviously concerts have not happened, whether on a large scale or even on a smaller, more intimate club style scale. How has that, as a musician, affected you? And when do you see yourself not necessarily jumping back on stage, but also feeling comfortable jumping back on stage?
Yeah. It's interesting how just my, I mean, all musicians are feeling this. It's not just me, but how my routine changed. I was used to playing, at least one or two or more performance, rehearsals, gigs, concerts per week. And then it was zero. And that was a pretty big shocker. And so then I focused on my teaching and teaching online. And it took some time to for it to really click that, like, okay, you know what? This is it's going to be a long haul. It's temporary, but it doesn't mean that I'm not a performer, and not performing doesn't mean that I'm not a musician. Like, so it's okay. I'm just going to focus on teaching right now. In terms of being ready to get back performing, I've actually really been enjoying connecting with my own personal practice during the pandemic. I've been trying to practice every day, just my own kind of routine. I took on a little personal project with no deadline, where I'm trying to memorize all 6 Bach cello suites. If it takes me to age 90, that's totally fine. But it's just given me a little, just a sort of a pandemic focus, and it's just helping me stay in shape and explore musically and strengthen my memory. And so if someone said we've got a live concert happening tomorrow, I feel like I'd be ready to go.
Now, you mentioned your teaching as well. I assume that a lot of that has been done virtually over the past year, but how important is it for you, a successful professional musician, to be able to impart those lessons to the people who were like you when they were just learning?
Well, I've always taught. I started teaching when I was in like late high school and in university, and it's always been something I've enjoyed deeply. I really love the relationship I have with my students. And I think the work is really important, and it's not about developing more professional musicians necessarily. It's in Suzuki philosophy, we talk about character first, ability second. And I know how important it was in my own journey through cello lessons, how much I developed as a person, and I developed perseverance and self-esteem and grit and just sort of a deep sensibility for beauty and art. And I want to impart that on every single one of my students. And sometimes I see them as being in the same place that I was in when I was younger, or but they're all on their own path. And what's really cool is there's room for everybody. And I love remembering that whether you become a professional or play in a semi-professional orchestra, or play a little bit on the side here and there, or play for your grandkids, or become a concert subscriber, you can be a cellist in like any capacity, and I think that's awesome. So I love helping my students find themselves as musicians in their community.
When you're teaching someone, that's obviously they've learned, to a certain point, and they start to, maybe get some gigs or get some performance contracts or whatnot. What's more important? Remember your fundamentals and being, like as close to pitch perfect as you can, or playing through the occasional sour note and not letting it hamper the rest of your night, like not lingering on that one sour note you played, amongst a million other great notes.
A really big thing I work on with my students, and that I've had to learn myself, is to not collapse when you get an off note or something doesn't go well. The show must go on. You just have to roll through it. If you're doing a performance, you do another take. If it's a recording, it took a long time for me to separate, errors and things like that, as seeing them as objective and not seeing them as a personal failure. Oh, I'm terrible. Seeing it as like, okay, bad note, try again. And separating the two. And so I work on that pretty hard with my students, and I can see it in them. I can see it when perfectionism starts to develop, and I can see when students are developing a fixed mindset versus a flexible mindset. And so I try to work really hard with them to roll with it, try again, hit that stage again, seek lots of different performance opportunities that aren't high stakes, like go play duets with a friend on a bench under the tree, go play in the farmer's market, play for friends, just ways to develop stronger confidence, and so that when performances are more high stakes, I guess, you're ready and you're feeling really good, no matter what happens.
I assume you've been put into both situations where, in one hand, you've been given plenty of time to prepare for the piece that you're going to perform, and in other cases where it's been, okay, so we're just gonna improv this and see how it goes from here. Which do you find more personally satisfying, and what are the challenges of both?
I'm a preparer, and I like being prepared in an improvisational context too. So really, understanding the form and where my solo fits, and really feeling good about changes and that kind of thing. But maybe I'm a bit of a crafts person. I like developing a really, really good concept and a solid technical foundation, and feeling like I have a really sure footing on what I'm about to do. So I like to be as prepared as possible, and then I can relax, and then I can trust the work that I've done. And so there's a huge amount of freedom in the structure. So from the structure comes that freedom and that level of comfort. And in an improvisation situation, I try to be, if there's something I can prepare for, maybe I'm improvising against a tune or chord changes or just an energy, I will prepare. I always like to do my homework and put in that groundwork.
Now, you've been in both situations where you've either been solo or small ensemble, and then in larger groups. As a performer, which do you prefer?
Solo ensemble or larger groups. I think in my heart, I'm a chamber musician. And so interacting with and performing in smaller ensembles like a string quartet or small string section, or smaller ensembles with my Baroque ensemble, Resonance. So that's Resonance Baroque Ensemble. It's violin, cello, harpsichord, and guest violins and guest wind instruments. Because there are opportunities for solo playing and having a supportive role. So when it's my time to play a more soloistic role, I'm all over it. I love it so much, and then I love being there. Creating the groundwork for my colleagues to really sound their best, especially playing a bass instrument. That's a pretty big role for us. So I think that's number one for me.
Now, one of the cool things that you have gotten a chance to do in your career is, for all of our listeners who remember the remake of the movie Flatliners, you were actually brought in to help Nina Dobrev basically learn the cello. How did that come about, and how was that process being an on-set supervisor, if you will, or cello advisor?
Yeah, like I was a cello coach, I guess. I guess they just found my name. They found my website, the producers of Flatliners. And I had done some coaching work for film in the past. So, for example, I trained the model and actress who is in a music video for The Truths. And she was not a cellist, but she's very beautiful, and so I helped her play the cello for that music video. And it's possible that this production saw that in my info. It was really cool teaching Nina Dobrev on a very short time frame. I think we had a handful of weeks, and she wasn't just going to play some beautiful long notes on the cello. The director had a specific section of music for her to play, which was a very complex section of a very famous prelude from the J.S. Bach cello suites. And she had to look like she was playing it. And so they would send a car for me, and I would be driven to her trailer on set, and we would have cello lessons in her trailer or at her apartment. And she did so well. She worked so hard. She practiced, got really great form, really great left hand shape and bow control. And we practiced with the recording. And it was really fun on the day that we shot the scene. The scene, by the way, is where her character, Marlo, is. You kind of see a flashback of all of the accomplishments she's done in her life. So there's a picture of her winning a prize for horseback riding, and then it cuts to her doing Olympic diving, and then it cuts to her finishing a cello performance. So anyway, so that's where the scene was. But on the day of performing, the director let me kind of help out and chime in and give my 2 cents. And so I got to kind of work behind the scenes on set as well.
Now, I think it's also very important to note for viewers who are watching this on YouTube right now, you'll notice a certain book behind you. And Erika has written a book called Sound Mind. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that came about?
So Sound Mind, the full title is called Sound Mind, My Bipolar Journey from Chaos to Composure, is a book that came about when I was diagnosed with type 1 bipolar disorder in 2013, I guess. So I was 27 at the time. And that experience was so shocking and isolating and frightening. And it was so hard. And I basically had to question the past almost 3 decades of my life, kind of rethinking everything with this new lens of oh, well, I guess I had bipolar the whole time. I just thought I was a colorful person who experienced some bouts of depression as a teenager, and, you know, had you know, other challenges in my 20s, just around stuff like that. And but it turned out to be more than that. And when I was first diagnosed, I of course tried to read up on it as much as humanly possible. And this was before there were Facebook groups and Instagram accounts to follow and stuff like that. So I was just like looking on Wikipedia and Googling and taking resources recommended to me from other people. And I stumbled across a couple of books, memoirs written by those with lived experience. And one was an artist, a cartoonist. And just reading about her story and seeing myself in it, it resonated so much. It was so healing. I felt so comforted, and as if I had a peer, and maybe there were other people out there like me. Of course, I know this now. It's so common, but at the time, I was just so alone with it. Anyway, so the experience of reading those books made me think like, okay, well, it's been quite a ride. You know, I finally figured out how to manage this. There's got to be other people who would benefit from hearing about how I learned to cope with having this and the steps I took towards recovery. And it's kind of like when you discover anything, when someone discovers, they go to their first yoga class and they want to tell everybody about it. Like, you've got to do yoga. Or, you know, someone discovers some new religion and they want to go around sharing it with everybody. When I came out of the other side of learning I had to overhaul my entire lifestyle. I had to overhaul my diet, the way I looked at food and sleep, and I had to let go of my workaholic lifestyle, and I had to make so many changes. And I thought, if I could just share this with other people somehow, maybe it can help some other people. Maybe my story of being a musician who overcame these challenges will resonate with somebody. And I started getting ideas and started putting pieces in place, and I could see a narrative arc when I wrote notes to myself. And I thought, like, okay, well, maybe there's a book here, and one thing led to another. And so Sound Mind came out in 2019, so it's still really new. And actually, this past couple of years, it was the recipient of a Nautilus Gold Book Award, as well as a Canada Book Award, and a finalist with the Next Generation Indie Book Awards as well.
How cathartic was it for you to be able to put some of those stories onto paper? And what's been the reader feedback from people who have, maybe identify with the things that you went through?
Well, in terms of the catharsis of writing the book, that sort of came about just in the very beginning stages when I was kind of writing free fall, just getting ideas out on paper. I certainly didn't go about writing my book for my own catharsis. I really saw the whole story and what I'd gone through objectively, like I was looking at somebody else's experience and thinking, this is interesting. This has a story to it with lessons that can be learned, and I think other people can benefit from that. So the book is in two parts. The first part is a very short memoir. It's just half a book's worth, how I got to the point I got to, and then the second half is all of the steps I took towards recovery. Those are the big takeaways for the reader. And writing out what I learned about nutrition, what I learned about proper, what we call sleep hygiene, proper sleep, when I put those into writing, it actually reinforced it for myself as well. Just in the same way, when we teach other people, it enforces what we know, and we're also learning, strengthening our own knowing by teaching. And so that's kind of how that came together. And then just the response for the book, it's been really great. The book was number one on Amazon in Ontario in its category. I got a lot of really, really great feedback and beautiful words from readers, some that I know, some that I only know a little bit. And they came to me saying, I've also been struggling, or I have a family member who's been going through this. I was quite surprised by how many people I heard from who had been there or knew somebody who had. And something that's really rewarding, like the top for me, is hearing from readers who read my book, and they then took steps towards their own recovery and are feeling much better. And that's mission accomplished. If that happened for one person, great.
So for anyone who's listening to the podcast right now and may be dealing with their own issues, whether it being as a musician or following another creative endeavor and dealing with the same or similar issues that you do, what advice would you give to them?
I would say number one, now this can be impossible for some people, but if you can, even just in a small way, reach out. There are so many accessible support groups out there now, way more than when I was first diagnosed. There are Facebook groups. There are also all kinds of communities, resources through CAMH and meetup groups. I'm actually a member of the Toronto Bipolar Disorder meetup group, and there are over 1,200 members or something like that of people who are part of this. And that can be one of the hardest steps to take, and one of the biggest steps is to recognize that you are worthy of getting support, and that you need support. So that was one of the best things I ever did. I even reached out to, I remembered a peer from a long time ago, a singer friend who mentioned casually during a rehearsal, she said, "Oh, well, yeah, because I have bipolar, da, 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 da." And I picked up on that, and I asked her for coffee, and we talked about it, and she really helped me come to terms with my condition, and that it was, the symptoms I were experiencing were real. And so I can't say enough about getting some form of peer support.
Now, on top of being an author and being a cellist, you're also an acrylic artist as well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm a visual artist. I'm a painter. I've always sketched, drawn, made things. I've made sculptures, sewing. That's just something I've always done. I took a specialized program in visual arts in high school. It was kind of a pre-university visual arts program. And at that time, I thought, I'm either going to either focus on music in university or in visual art. And I applied for both. And I ended up going with music. And so I kind of put my visual art practice on hold for a little while. And I'm really glad I did, because it's a lot harder to come back to focusing on music if you've taken time away, or if you're, say, coming back when you're sort of, didn't go to grad school or something like that. So I put my visual art practice on hold. I took some courses in university in sculpture and film and stuff like that. And then of course, I'd always made pieces along the way. And recently, the past year, I was actually, a friend of mine was subletting her painting studio, and I saw the ad on Facebook, and I kind of thought, oh, neat. Well, maybe this could be something that I could use. I actually just finished a certificate in studio practices from art design and studio skills from OCAD. And so that's through the School of Continuing Studies. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity to try the space out for a year or so and see if I would use it. And I did, and I made some pieces I was really happy with. And some of which I auctioned off for a really great cause, the Hopewell Eating Disorder Center in Ottawa. They were having a live auction fundraiser, and the fundraiser for an art therapy program. And so they had a live auction for paintings. And anyway, so recently I found another studio space through Akin Studios, and through Akin, their studio space is actually right across the street from my house. So that's been just a new development in my artistic life.
So obviously entering any, creative career, whether it be music, whether it be literature, whether it be art, it's sometimes a long, hard, journey, a hard road to hoe. How hard has it been to get to this point where you're at now? And what advice do you have for those who are saying, no, I want to do this. I want to be a professional artist, a professional musician, a professional writer?
Well, the best steps that I took towards getting to where I am now is I worked really hard for it. I've always strived to do my best in everything that I do. I try to be 110% prepared for any rehearsal or concert. Another big thing is and some people say this is like 90% of it, but I reply to email right away. I get back to people's messages who want to hire me. I sound really, I'm friendly anyway, but really friendly in my communication. I'm organized. I'm really on the ball. So those kinds of skills have really, really helped. Or learning how to write a really nice proposal type email, and those kinds of skills. Having those in place is hugely important. It is such a big part of it, and showing up to rehearsals and concerts early, and just working really, really hard and being as organized and on the top of things as you can be.
So looking back at your career so far, is there one moment or a couple of moments where you can sit there and say, yes, either this concert or this recording or this moment so far, these are the points where I sit there and say, these are the high marks of my career thus far?
I had a couple of pretty big highlights, I guess sort of a year or 2 years before the pandemic. One was a series of concerts at Kerner Hall with the Musical Stage Company for their Uncovered series, which was featuring the music of Stevie Wonder and Prince. It was such an incredible music experience. Everything was just top notch. Amazing arrangements of the music of Stevie Wonder and Prince by Reza Jacobs. It was a really great, tight ensemble of keyboard, percussion, basses, and cello. So I got to be a chamber musician. Kerner Hall is incredible. And the lineup of singers they had for this series of concerts that just took my breath away. The talent, the heart and soul, the amazing, amazing musicianship. And they're just such a great company to work with. So that was a huge highlight. And another, one of my favorite concerts from that time period was also playing with my Baroque ensemble. We went on tour to Indiana to play for the Early Music America Festival there in Bloomington. And we did a wonderful all-handled program with an absolutely fantastic vocalist. And I was in a chamber music setting, and it's just a wonderful program, wonderful colleagues, everything just lined up. It's just amazing.
Okay. An A or B question here for you. Okay. Someone offers you concert tickets, right? In this hand, Yo-Yo Ma. In this hand, Apocalyptica. Which concert tickets are you taking?
Oh, that's really tough. I'm going to go with Yo-Yo Ma because, he's much more at a mature stage of his career, and I want to catch him while I can. Whereas Apocalyptica, maybe they'll keep going for a few more decades, so maybe I'll catch the next one.
So we've come to the point now where it's time to get to know you a little bit better. So, Erika Nielsen, if you were to introduce yourself to a stranger by not talking, not saying, "Hi, I'm Erika, I play cello," but but by handing them a mixtape, and on that tape are songs that tell the story of you. What songs are on there, and why are those songs there?
All right, so prepared for this. This is such a tough mixtape to make, because your inclination is to make a mixtape of your favorite songs and songs that were meaningful to you. But what we're doing actually is making a mixtape of songs that tell the story of me, which is different. So here we go. Not all of these selections are representative of my overall taste in music at this point in my life, so some might make you smile. So first on this mixtape, we have the theme songs to The Muppets and Animaniacs.
Nice.
It just like the Muppets, they used live studio musicians. Like, the music was awesome, and Animaniacs, I just think that's just a show. That cartoon was so well written and hilarious, and I love comedy. And anyway, that was a big.
I'll admit, going back and watching the Muppets now on Disney Plus, you forget just how many musical numbers were actually on that show, and it's like there was a lot of really good music on there. Yeah.
Next, I've got Amish Paradise by Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh, God. Actually, one of his better ones, too.
I was in it was one of the first CDs I bought, that album, Bad Hair Day. And I love comedy and parody. And he just, believe it or not, the songs are really well written, and they're just hilarious. And anyway, that's on there. After that, we have the Elgar Cello Concerto. This was pretty huge in my life. It is for zillions of cellists, but my grandparents gave me the sheet music to it when I was far too young for it. I was 12, but that sparked my imagination, and I thought maybe I could play this someday. And I just fell in love with the music, and I used to watch the VHS of Jacqueline Dupre performing it, and she just captured my heart. And it was another woman cellist, and I was captured by her story of very sadly passing away to multiple sclerosis. The Elgar Cello Concerto became the first major concerto that I memorized and performed for one of my graduating recitals, and so it had a big part of my life. Next on the mixtape is Wonderwall by Oasis and Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve. These are some of the first tunes I would listen to in the 90s, and I would hear those wonderful, rich string lines, and it occurred to me maybe I could be the cellist for Oasis. That would be awesome. Maybe I don't just have to play an orchestra. So those are pretty huge, and those kind of sparked my, listening to a lot of Brit pop and stuff like that. Next on the playlist is Gold Digger by Kanye West.
Oh, jeez.
I'm just picking one song from that album. So performing with Kanye twice for MTV Canada and for the Live at the Concert Hall series, and also at the formerly Air Canada Centre. That jump-started my freelance career. That was a pretty big, major gig that started my career. So got to put a Kanye tune on there. The other would be the Sarabande in C Major by J.S. Bach from the Bach Cello Suites. And that jump-started my love for Baroque music and historical performance practice, and I ended up studying Baroque music at the Tafel Music Summer Institute, and then today playing a lot of Baroque cello. Next we have the Rain Song by Led Zeppelin. I'm a huge Zeppelin fan anyway. Way back when I was in my first years in Toronto, I was part of this awesome instrumental sextet called Muskox, and we played original minimalist music by Mike Smith. And he did an arrangement of the Rain Song, and it just totally stole my heart. And my husband actually plays bass for Red Zeppelin, Toronto's best Led Zeppelin tribute. So any Zeppelin tune is a pretty big spot in my heart. Next we have the Schumann Cello Concerto, and it's my favorite cello concerto. And I performed it on my final recital in graduate school and did master classes in Banff and in Germany. But when I was diagnosed with bipolar, I instantly realized why I loved the music of Robert Schumann so much, and why I could connect with that composer. And I could never put a finger on it before. Robert Schumann suffered from mental illness his entire life, and some people think that he had bipolar disorder. It's hard to know for sure, but just something about it, just his writing, I just get it. I just get it. And lastly, we have God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. And it's just a beautiful song. I love the Beach Boys. And my husband arranged this song for our wedding. And there's my mixtape.
That's amazing. That is awesome. Having a husband as a musician as well, how supportive is that when you're at home?
Oh, it's great. He does. We work quite separately. He's preparing his own stuff, doing his own practicing, his own teaching, and I'm doing mine. It's so supportive in other ways too. I can just play something and say, "Can you just give me your 2 cents on this? Is this dynamic choice kind of weird here?" He's also a composer, so I can play through pieces that he's composed or arranged, and we can just check in with each other like that, which is great, and bounce ideas off one another. So I really feel like I have like a musical partner in that sense, even though we don't play in a band together.
That's awesome. Erika, thank you so much for this. This has been a wonderful conversation. Where can we find you in social media, and where can we hear some of your work?
Yeah, you can find me at Cello Erika. That's Erika with a K. That's on Instagram, also Twitter, but I never check Twitter. So Instagram or Erika Nielsen on Facebook. And you can find out more about me on my website, which is Cello Erika, one word, Erika with a K.com.
And where can we pick up a copy of Sound Mind?
You can pick up a copy of Sound Mind. It's available on Amazon.ca, Indigo, Barnes & Noble. If you want to send me an email, I have a couple of copies here too. Thank you, Erika, so much. Much success to you and your husband in the future. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of the Major Mixtape podcast. If you're listening to us on an audio streaming service, you can watch the entire interview on YouTube. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you can actually download it, listen to it on the go on any audio streaming service. Until next time, we will see you next time. Take care.